Excellent. I am pleased today to announce our speaker, Catherine Soper, who's the Marketing and Communications Director for the Port of Everett. So we can learn some things that are occurring in at the Port of Everett and the connection that they have to the city of Arlington. A lot of people probably don't realize that. And I'm also going to recognize her because I was reading the Everett Herald like a week ago, and they had a little insert for the Herald Business Journal Emerging Leaders of 2022, and Catherine is one of them. So great accomplishment.
Thank you very much. I think, can you guys hear me? Good enough? I can yell too.
Put it right up here.
How about that? Is this better?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction and that recognition. I am an Arlington girl. I live in Arlington Heights, and I just absolutely have enjoyed today interacting with your club members and hearing about things. But before I get started, my personal hat, I just want to thank the club for the splash pad. That thing is awesome. My kids love it. We're there all the time, and we can't wait for it to open. And I understand that was your project. And so just thank you for all you do in the community as a resident. I love it. So, I won't read all of this. We do have handouts on the table too, but just kind of before I give our quick elevator pitch on who the Port of Everett is, I always like to kind of gauge the room and see what you know about the port. So if you have a connection with the port, or when you think about the port, kind of shout out some things that maybe resonate. Is there any way you interact with the port regularly in the room?
I walk there a lot.
Walking, yeah.
Yeah.
Summer concerts.
Yes,
Skookum Brewery.
yeah. Skookum. Skookum's here.
Yes.
Scuttlebutt, yes, yes. That was a trick. That was a test for me. Lombardi's,
Public vote launch.
boat launch.
The movies in the summer.
Oh, awesome. Yes. Summer movies.
Boat launch, walking, scuttlebutt, and then my kids also went to Orca.
Oh, yeah.
Over there, so I got to hang out there many days.
That's awesome. So Orca is the Ocean College Research Academy that is based out of the Port of Everett, and they're part of Everett Community College Running Start program. So these kids are in high school, they're earning their diploma and their 2-year college degree, and using the marine environment right at the port to learn their basic studies. It's really cool. That's awesome.
Jetty Island?
Yeah, Jetty Island. We own Jetty Island. It's a 2-mile-long island just west of our upland areas, and we see a lot of people go out there every year.
You coexist with the Navy, which is tough sometimes.
We do coexist with the Navy, yes, and we have our working waterfront and our fun destination waterfront, which it sounds like you guys are more familiar with. And so I think this year, of any year, you guys probably heard more about supply chain than you had hoped. But it kind of puts a light on, the importance of seaports and that whole grand scheme of how you get your things. COVID is toilet paper. Where's your toilet paper? It's on a ship somewhere. And how do things get to stores? And so I think seaports they touch everyone's life daily, whether you know it or not. And so who the Port of Everett is and isn't, quick elevator pitch. We've been around just over a century. We were formed by the citizens of Everett to, protect the waterfront and protect interests and build jobs and economy. So we are not part of the city or the county, but we have our own special district that is really tasked with economic development, job creation. That's our charter. And ports are different, once you've met one port, you've met one port, whether they operate an airport or a seaport or a marina. For us, our business lines are international shipping. We do have the largest public marina on the West Coast, which it sounds like you guys have walked around and launched boats at, and real estate development. So we do commercial real estate development as well as industrial real estate development to build those job hubs. So it's kind of a variety. It's a lot of fun. And we have a lot of impact in the region in terms of jobs. So 60% of jobs in Snohomish County are tied to trade. So I'm sure someone in here knows someone that works at Boeing or railroad or tug operator, or truck driver. All of that is touched somehow with the Port of Everett. So we are small but mighty. We have the third largest container port in Washington State, very distant third from the consumer ports in Seattle and Tacoma. We do a lot more of the high and heavy goods, aerospace product, big construction equipment. I'm sure I have some photos on here, but $21 billion worth of exports come out of Everett's facility. And so the port is really Snohomish County's hub for trade. We look at the waterfront in two pieces. And so I heard you guys talk a lot about the recreational destination waterfront. That's where the quality of life piece is. It's definitely not the moneymaker. Ports run more like a business than a government agency. So our operations are funded by the revenue streams that we bring in through our business lines. And also that working waterfront, that's really the workforce and the revenue generator that allows us to provide those quality of life opportunities, clean up the environment, add public access, and the fun at the recreational side. We all survived the pandemic somehow, some way. We're all here. Ports are essential, as you guys saw during the pandemic and through the supply chain crunch. While supply chain was not brought on, those issues were not brought on by the pandemic. They definitely increased the issues because everyone was at home, buying online, and it just kind of shifted the whole consumer mind to online purchasing, which was already happening before the pandemic. So there was a huge pivot there that we are, seaports are, seeing now because ships are finally backlogged. But we're really focused on modernizing our seaport. If we don't modernize, we don't keep up, and that's a lot of jobs that are tied to that operation there. Ships are getting larger and cargo is getting heavier. So making sure our facilities are up to snuff. And then growth and diversification. We support 100% of the aerospace cargoes that come into the area for Boeing, the 47, 67, 777, and 777X. But that was hit pretty hard. The industry had a huge decline during COVID. We had about an $8 million revenue impact at the port from that. And so our goal is to diversify. So we have our seaport, we have our real estate, we have all of these things, and kind of how can we make sure we can continue to provide these quality of life opportunities and jobs when something like that happens, when we see a dip. We integrate all of our economic development projects with environmental cleanup and public access. That's a huge priority for us in our district. Our district is interesting. We are not all of Everett, or most of Everett, portions of Mukilteo and portions of Marysville and unincorporated Snohomish County. So it's a unique mix. It's never been adjusted in our 100+ years. So not sure how those came to be, but we do, as Dave said, work in the Arlington area, Marysville area quite a bit, which I'll talk about. I won't read this whole thing, but we're really on that modernization phase. A lot of seaports in the area are trying to keep up with the larger ships. And why does this matter? In the grand scheme of things, ships are getting larger, cargo's getting heavier, and we're not trying to have the massive ships that are coming into LA, Long Beach. We could never accommodate that here in Everett, but we are trying to get to the disco era. Some of the ships that we're seeing people, chartering now just to get their goods to market. And so we're just keeping up in that way. Some of the projects you probably have heard about are our South Terminal modernization. This was a huge game changer, especially with the supply chain. We have 2 new cranes and a huge dock. This was a really big project and has made a huge impact. And then show of hands, who has kept track of the former Kimberley Clark Mill site? I know some of you probably worked there or knew people that worked there over the years. This is the parcel right in between the Navy base and the seaport, and it was vacant for, I guess, about 12 years now since Kimberley Clark left the site. And so as part of our acquisition of this site, we required KC to come and clean up the site and get it environmentally stable. And now we're coming in and doing environmental cap in partnership with the Department of Ecology. So that basically will cap the site, which is a good opportunity to also create a cargo terminal area. So it's a dual purpose. A lot of work going on there, a lot of jobs. This is going to create 900 more jobs in our area. Some other interesting things on the seaport side is that the Port of Everett is one of 18 seaports nationwide that is a strategic seaport. So that connection with the Navy and the military comes into play here. We are basically a chosen port for any military deployments, installations coming in and out of the area, and we're a preferred port of call for that. And on-site ship repair. Who rides the ferry in here or has ridden the ferry before? So between the destroyers that we have right here in the county and the ferries and things like that. Ship repair is really important to have on the waterfront, because if we don't have that, it goes to California or other areas. And so that's a lot of jobs and a lot of economic thriving that comes from having that competitive process here. We talked about the backlog and working through all of that, but kind of what does that mean? How does that translate? Like I said, we're a distant third when we talk about seaports. We weren't doing a ton of volume of containers, but we were doing a lot of containers for Boeing. We had a 400% increase just last year in container traffic. What we were seeing is, you saw all these ships out in the bay waiting to get into Seattle, Tacoma, LA, Long Beach. So these shippers started to get smart, and they said, okay, we're going to do some smaller vessels that could fit into ports like Port of Everett. We had just happened to open our south terminal to support Boeing cargo, which opened a whole opportunity for, all the Amazon containers you guys are seeing specifically here in Arlington with the new facility. I never thought I'd see a day in my 12 years that we had Amazon and Walmart, and all these containers on dock for consumer goods. And so it's been fun to see that growth there. And we've also handled the largest military shipment, about 850 pieces coming through. That was pretty neat. But now onto the fun stuff, and what it sounds like you guys connect with most at the Port of Everett is our destination waterfront. So to the north of the seaport, we have all of our upland development going on. We have 65 acres that are under mixed use redevelopment right now. That's really kind of made that switch from an industrial waterfront to a fun retail mixed use waterfront where you're bringing your families and enjoying a meal and doing all of that. This is going to create 2,000 jobs. So not a huge job hub, but it still is that huge impact while we're providing that quality of life opportunity and connection. We just opened for the first time ever in the history of the waterfront new housing. And so that's been a huge draw. Actually, does anyone remember the big fire, July 2020? I'll never forget it. I believe Arlington Fire was there as well, and North County Fire. Everybody was there, and they really made a situation that could have been extremely devastating. And they got this fire out really quick. So, needless to say, we had one of our buildings open last year, and this year we'll have the building that was burnt to the crisp come from the ashes, and it is opening this April. So they are fully pre-leased. I believe, or 80% pre-leased, and people want to live on the waterfront. Some fun things on the horizon. We are working on a new restaurant row and wine walk. I don't know if you've heard about that, but trying to attract more of what we have there. We have Scuttlebutt and we have Blue Water Distillery, but creating a cluster of wineries, breweries, spirits, tasting rooms, so that there's this excitement and experience that they can all share in the success together. Some new restaurants. Right now we have, let's see if I can point it out. Where it says A8 Fisherman Jack's. That's a new Asian-inspired dim sum restaurant coming to the waterfront. Pacific Northwest dim sum fusion. We have a new bakery coming. Rustic Cork Wine Bar just signed a lease down there as well. In the corner pocket where it says A7, the Jewel Restaurant, we're targeting, Latin kitchen, tequila bar type vibe there. We want to bring the international flavors to the waterfront because folks can't really connect with the international down at our shipping port. So kind of telling that story as well and letting people just enjoy an experience like that. In this big blue shaded area, this is the next phase. We just signed with a developer out of Seattle base with LPC West. They're building new retail, new housing, and new commercial. This will be kind of the job hub of the center. So a lot of folks that work in Seattle, some of the large employers there, maybe Microsoft, Amazon, those types of jobs. I'm not saying they're coming here, but we're looking at satellite facilities for some of those larger companies because a lot of their employees live here in Snohomish County, live in Arlington, live in Marysville, Everett. So having a hub for some satellite offices. Weyerhaeuser building, I don't know if anyone knows about this building or has heard about it. It's the iconic Everett building down at the waterfront that's moved 3 times in its life, 4th home out at the waterfront. But we just signed a lease with these folks, the Muse, and they're going to create a museum type experience in this while also providing a whiskey bar on one side and a coffee bar on the other side. So whether you're enjoying an experience with your family or with some nightlife with your friends, you're going to be able to kind of go back in time and experience the culture of just the mill town that the waterfront is. These are some images here of kind of what it could be. And then to the north of that, we have some industrial developments or light industrial developments going on. We just did a massive cleanup on this site. Does anyone know where Glen is? It's right at kind of the end of West Marine View Drive. So just north of that, there was an empty parcel, been empty for about 30 years. It was the former Baywood Mill site. And it just sat vacant. So what we did is we cleaned it up environmentally, restored the shoreline just last year. During COVID, we were still cranking out projects left and right. But this project is creating a new job center. We sold the parcel to Latitude Development, which our cleanup allowed for. And we required them to put this nature trail all around the site, which is we're hoping to open in summer. And first time it's had public access. So along the newly restored shoreline, and also about 300 new jobs will be in this area. And then I heard a lot about, environment and the planting of the trees in the wetland area. We are working on a wetland right now, the former Behringer Farm site. We purchased that, I think, in the 90s. We're finally getting that restored to its original state as a mitigation bank. And so we're restoring about 353 acres for salmon in that area, kind of like the Quaalude. I don't know if you guys saw their project. But basically, anytime you're doing projects in the shoreline zone, you need to mitigate for it. Like you'll see in the housing developments, you might see those little ponds here and there. This is basically a massive pond, and more bang for our buck. So we're pre-buying this so that it has some benefit to the environment as a bigger project than little one-off projects here and there. And Cascade Industrial Center, I know you guys probably maybe even know more about it than I do, but the Port of Everett is partnering with the cities of Marysville and Arlington on their new light industrial project that is in this opportunity zone that is that borders Arlington and Marysville, kind of where that Amazon building is going in and the new smart cap development. All of that, of course, is projects within the city limits, but how does the port kind of tie into that? What's our nexus? We're Snohomish County's international trade hub, right? So these companies can come in here and then trade through the seaport, create more jobs, create more opportunity and efficiency in that process. But also, we have a lot of tools in our tool belt. Again, we're economic development where cities don't have all those same tools. We have what's called a foreign trade zone, which is a huge incentive for businesses to come in. They can put their product within that zone tax-free for certain amounts of time. So there's some business incentives to create these new opportunities in the area. But it's been fun to watch that. Like I said, I live in Arlington, and I, drive down 172nd just like all of you guys, and I see some of the traffic impacts, and I know it's going to create a lot of opportunity for the county. And that makes me smile, and I say, okay, I can handle this traffic for today. So I hope that's the same. And then you'll probably hear we also own property along the Mukilteo Waterfront. And they are in part of our port district, and so we've been working really hard with them to kind of revision what's going on down there. We have a new parklet coming. The Washington State Ferry has just opened their new terminal there. We have a new fishing pier there, but we have some property that we have opportunity on. And so if you know anyone in the Mukilteo area, I know you guys are working on your strategic plan. Similar to that, we're going to be seeking feedback here pretty soon to say, hey, what do you want to see on your waterfront there? And how can we help facilitate that as an economic development partner for the city? And then Dave, I was talking about being at the Skilled Trades Fair today. This is another hat that we wear at the port, but as people are retiring and we're seeing, especially during COVID, the Great Resignation, we have a huge gap, and we had it before COVID, of people leaving trades and not having enough trained workforce going into trades. Everyone went to college, myself included, and we don't have people working these trade jobs. And so we're trying to do this flip of a switch, like, hey, trade is where it's at, learn a trade, get a job right out of school. You don't have this college degree you're paying for 20 years. There's opportunity with really good family wage jobs right out the gate. And so today we were at the Skilled Jobs Fair talking to hundreds of high school students about opportunities in trade. And we do a lot of stuff. We're working on building a maritime program with Snow Isle, starting with maybe a Maritime Mondays to try to build interest. And then to a full-blown maritime program would be my goal. So just to show people the opportunities and while they're young and thinking about it. And that's kind of in a nutshell a lot, but the high level of what we have going on, and I'm open for questions. Nothing's off limits. Hopefully I know the answers.
You mentioned the development of the former.
You mentioned the development of the former Behringer property, or restoration of it rather than development, as a mitigation bank. What activities do you intend to mitigate by pointing to that when you're done with it?
So that's a good point. So it does allow us to expedite any of those projects. So anytime we're working in the shoreline, right now we don't have anything programmed. But for instance, Union Slough, has anyone heard of that? It's another mitigation bank in the area. We actually developed that when we built Pacific Terminal, which is one of our shipping terminals. And that's been successful for many years. So anytime we're building a terminal, this Norton terminal, I believe we already have mitigation set for that we're working in the shoreline zone. But other like cities, counties, they can purchase mitigation credits from it as well. So we're basically pre-crediting, because there is more benefit in doing it all at once. And then that way, when people are ready to build, they don't have to go through this lengthy process to get a mitigation project attached as well. And in the meantime, maybe there's years and years and years of salmon recovery happening. So it's really a win-win. I hope that answers the question a little bit, but we don't have anything programmed at this time.
Understand.
So Catherine, wonderful presentation, and thanks for the update on the port. It seems to me that there is a real focus on that development of jobs. I think all of us are watching incredible growth around this area. How is the port interacting to mitigate some of the traffic problems that are going to be coming with these people when they roll in?
And are you thinking specifically here in Arlington? Or just
Anywhere up and
Union
down,
County?
South
Yeah.
South Everett, anywhere around here.
I think, we partner with all these developers, but, it's a really good question on how this is going to be sustainable growth. We need housing. We not only need housing, but we need transportation infrastructure. As a port, that is a business line we can get into, is transportation infrastructure, and it's what we do well. So we could provide support in that area. Our challenge is we don't have district in some of these areas. So there's some limits to what we can and can't do inside and outside of our port district. So if there was opportunity, for instance, in the future to expand the port district, we could look at transportation opportunities in those areas like widening roads and things like that with our port hat on in a program like that. We also have opportunity, like we're working with North Point Development, which is, I believe, on the border of Arlington and Marysville, right in the middle, to work on marketing, but then also some infrastructure as we develop and get some businesses in there. So it's just a partnership in what we can and can't do, but there are some challenges because this isn't our district. That makes sense. Yeah.
So on the wetland bank credits, you mentioned that cities and counties can buy into it. Can private developers buy into it, or is it just for municipal use?
I believe so. I don't have all the specifics on that. There is a specific list of you have to meet certain requirements. It's not open for purchase yet because it's not complete, but that I will get back to you or somebody in this group on that question.
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. What's the timeline on when they'll be fully approved?
We plan to breach the dike starting in summer. So before that, they should be available for credit. And the breaching is like a 2-month process, I'm told. I was thinking it would just like all of a sudden just be flooding and do this big show. I'm like, what can we do? Tell people, but it's a pretty long process. But before that process, we should have credits available for purchase. Maybe we can connect after and I can share my card.
What's the timeline on the opening for the A8, A12?
End of this year. Yeah, or not A12, sorry. A8 is this year, it's already under construction. A12 is 2023. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I learned something new about the port. I didn't know it extended from Mukilteo all the way up to Everett, so that was really interesting. For the geographically, for the new restaurants that Jen just referred to, is it north of like where your office is?
Yeah, so my office is, everyone know where Scuttlebutt is? That's kind of how everyone's like, find it above Scuttlebutt. So we would be just south of that. That's where the new restaurants are.
South of your office.
Mhm.
Okay.
And And there's a new splash fountain over there. So a lot of little nodes of public access in between all of these businesses going in. And I get a lot of questions. We have a lot of restaurants and wineries and breweries, you know, what about the families? We have a ton of public access in here. This is just one piece because we really are missing the nightlife piece. Now we have livability on the site. It's kind of this ability to, we've always had a marina. It's always been the largest one, but then it had this industrial field right in the middle of it. So we spent years, literally since I've been there, cleaning up this environmental site. It was all a mill town. And so we worked on that process, and now we're finally in that development phase. And so there's a lot of family opportunity, but not a lot of, you know, the folks that are moving into the apartments. We're seeing, you know, millennials and the dinks, as I call them, dual income, no kids. And then you've got, you know, your baby boomers. So you have, or empty nesters, I mean. And so you have this kind of gap in services that are down there. But what it's doing is, you know, any businesses that were trying to come in there before, without the livability, the marina is pretty seasonal, right? So it's, boaters aren't, unless you're hardcore, you're not out there, you know, 12 months out of the year. So creating a 12-month year-round destination is really what's helping these businesses thrive and stay there and create the destination. So that was kind of a roundabout question and answer, but I hope I touched on that.
So I have lots of questions.
Yeah.
What's the status of the old original yacht club building? And is there any, with the redevelopment of a friend, a lifelong friend who's a commercial, multi-generational commercial fishing family, is there any preservation of like a reflection back on the net sheds and the commercial history that was in the marina?
Love that question. So we did develop, I don't even know, it's not up here, but there is, and I don't think I have a good photo of it, but we put in what's called Sainer Wharf. So Fisherman's Harbor is where those new restaurants are going and what's under development right now. Along the south end of that development, we put what's called Sainer Wharf, and we have all of our commercial fishing vessels that still remain in Everett. It's not a huge, I think there's, I think 17 in the fleet left. And so that there's, you know, that experience where you can come down and see the fishermen, you know, pulling up their catch. We want to put a fish market over there that's more year round. We've had some seasonal things. So that kind of pays tribute to that. There should be some signage and that. Everett Yacht Club, that building, as you know, I'm sure you've done exercises in there and things like that. We partner with the fire service to do that, but it's beyond its useful life. No one should ever go in there. It's pretty bad. So we have vacated the site. Everett Yacht Club is actually redeveloping a space in the South Marina right now and hope to open later at the end of summer in their new space. So, but we're in phase 1. Phase 2 is that blue area in the graphic that's going to be starting next year. And phase 3 is that new building. And we're targeting hospitality and restaurant, that sort of concept out there. Very popular, but we have to move from east to west because we have to build out all the infrastructure as we go.
Catherine, where the yacht club,
Size of the port, what is the annual gross revenue approximate for the port?
That's a good question. I don't know that, but I do know that our budget is about an $80 million budget. And I always like to say, again, we are different than cities. We're not fully tax-based. We do levy a very small tax, you know, just less than the Snow Isle libraries for kind of all this stuff that we provide. I always like to share that because our operations do support like our salaries and benefits, and our operations support themselves. But I don't know the full revenue stream on that. That's a really good question.
Okay, I think Gene online
Oh.
had a question.
yeah, down there where the yacht club was, 2-3 years ago, sort of the rumor was Duke's Chowder House or Ivers or somebody like that was going to go in there. That went away.
I don't believe that was a true concept. I think people wanted that. But Ivers is very happy in Mukilteo. We are partnering, you know, they're part of the work group that's working on the Mukilteo Waterfront right now. But they kind of have their shoehold over in Mukilteo.
Thank you.
Is there any kind of, would there be like a Victoria Clipper or something that would be like a service out of Everett versus Seattle?
We have a lot of questions and interest in that. So it is something that we're looking into and seeing how we can facilitate that. We have a couple charters. They just were never successful, being that we didn't really have that true destination. And with all the transformation and the destination, you know, density that will be here now, I think it's a true opportunity. So we are looking at that. We have also heard a lot of people wanting opportunity for a seaplane landing space. So I'm looking into that too to see kind of what opportunities that could bring. But we're probably a couple years out from anything like that.